Welcome to Your Wordless podcast, the space where we redefine success, self-worth, and transformation. I am Nierras, the soul-centered architect of transformation, helping you unlock your highest potential and build a legacy beyond limits. Now, whether it is self-mastery, career breakthroughs, or wealth creation, this is where change begins. Now, let's dive in. Hi, Nikki. How are you? Good evening to you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, Nikki. It's so weird calling my own. People call me Nikki too. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking and for saying yes to be interviewed today. I'd like to introduce myself formally. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled Your Wordless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Now, the topic or the guest for today is yourself, which is a key expert in divorce and especially for female. And I too is a divorcee. So this is beautiful. I'd love to jump into our conversation. But first, I'd like to introduce yourself to our listeners. So, hey everyone, we have Nikki Tucker here with us. Nikki is a certified divorce financial analyst and the founder of the FIIRM Approach, a business dedicated to helping women navigate financial uncertainties, particularly during divorce proceedings. Now, with over 2 decades of experience, she empowers women to confidently manage their finances through practical education and strategic planning. She has been featured on various podcasts herself, including Doing Relationships Right, Shameless Mom Academy, and Black Women Leading. Welcome, Nikki, to the show.
Thank you for having me. I am looking forward to our conversation, especially knowing that you've survived the journey of divorce.
Yes, exactly. So, Nikki, I'd like to take all of my listeners and the guests themselves in a trip down memory lane first before we get deeper into the nitty-gritty of things. So, can you please share with us first, what was it like growing up as a Nikki Tucker?
Well, it was actually pretty fun. I come from a very loving family, and I like to say that it's not a traditional family. So, not the nuclear mom, dad, a dog, and white picket fence. So we didn't have any of that. However, I did have a lot of love. And so I lived with my mom primarily and my grandparents. And then for a certain amount of time, I only lived with my grandparents. And then my grandfather died, and I only lived with my grandmother. That said, though, I had a relationship with my father and my father's side of the family. And so I spent a lot of time with my father's side of the family, usually on the weekends or during summers and stuff like that. And or a few of the messages that my father's side of the family always talked to me about was going to college and being able to take care of myself, especially the being able to take care of myself. So they would say, you have to go to college, you have to get a job, earn money, and then you need to know how to take care of yourself. And when you're young, okay, let me follow these steps. It sounds simple enough. And when you're an adult, you realize that you don't really know what being able to take care of yourself means. And so you're left to figure it out. And that's what I had to do.
Oh, so there were really some, I don't want to say triggering, but ear prick up moments when you were saying loving and then growing up on the paternal side of the family, right? So the loving part is them giving you all the love, but at the same time, loving from them means, okay, you gotta be able to fend for yourself and provide for yourself regardless of where you are in your life or which stage in your life, if you're with a partner or without a partner. I mean, we don't want that. Nobody goes into a marriage with the goal of getting a divorce. So
Exactly.
yeah, so I too can resonate because growing up, my father always said the key to changing your life is education. Therefore, you've got to, be the good student, get good grades, get good paying jobs so you can stand on your own 2 feet. However, I realized that with me, there were other nuances that came into the picture where, okay, I was chasing the status and whatnot. And at 30, I had this idealistic view of my life where everything would fall into place. Good job, good money, a good partner with kids. And I stopped planning after 30. But then what happened was after 2 years of my marriage, things fell apart. And so that's one of my biggest dreams, taken away from me. And that too, I tied to my sense of self-worth, because since I was a kid, I've always been this good student. So if I set my mind into to some doing something, I will achieve it. But then when that happened, I felt worthless. So this began the whole, I spiraled into that rabbit hole of, okay, if somebody can't love me just the way that I am, what am I? Who am I? Right. So I focused my attention to my work, which is the second best thing that I'm good at. Number one, actually. And then things did not pan out as I wanted it to be. So my point here being, in your journey, what did you learn was it good that you had to, being this strong, independent woman all the time? Did that serve you well, or, did it have its twists and turns along the way?
Absolutely pros and cons to it. So I think more pros than cons, but you made some really good points
Mm,
because similarly, being ambitious and trying to figure out life and be independent was useful. It made me resourceful. And I started working at the age of 14. And even when I got into a relationship and I met my husband, I was 17, 18 years old. But I was already working at that time and continued to work and continue to go to college and fulfill my career goals. At the same time, now that I am an empty nester, essentially, so I have an adult son and I'm also a widow, I am back in the dating pool, if you will. And it's uncharted territory in a sense.
no.
So, like you said, no one goes into a marriage with the idea of it ending in a divorce or that prematurely it will end because of a different reason. But I've become so independent that it is hard to date and it is hard to figure out what your rightful place is or your new identity. And I think that's the interesting part about divorcing is the title of wife or the title of wife and mother if you have children is a huge part of our identity. And so we feel like we're losing our identity because we're losing the title. But in a sense, you're really not. You're moving into a new chapter and you're going into new experiences and just a different phase of your life. But it doesn't take away the experiences and the lessons and the wisdom that you gained when you were married. Just because you are a mom, I'm a mom now to an adult child, and he's my firstborn, one and only. So I've never been a mom to an adult child anymore. But that doesn't take away from any of the experiences that I have or that I can leverage from when he was a little guy. And so everything to me is kind of a building block. Yes, it's going to be very, very difficult when you're going through the divorce process and when you're trying to figure out who you are. But I encourage people to not get so caught up in the title and be more after you get through the grieving process. Obviously, it's easier said than done, but take more from the lessons that you learned and figure out how you can apply it. So that's where the independence piece and me being ambitious has been beneficial to me in the stage that I am in my life now.
That I love that. So this is just me being curious. So how long have you been divorced?
Well,
Or
widowed. Yeah,
a widow?
widowed.
I
Yeah.
am so sorry, widow.
No, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. So my husband passed in 2019.
Okay, I'm very sorry to hear.
Yeah, thank you. So that means we're going into year 7, 6, I guess, essentially. And it is one of those things where I liken it to divorce, and me having the professional experience on the divorce side, I can very easily relate to clients who are experiencing divorce because divorce is like death. It is a huge loss. Death is more permanent, obviously, but it's still a huge loss. And so, whether the divorce was expected or unexpected, you still have to go through the process from an emotional perspective, the healing process, the grieving process to rebuild your confidence and again, find your footing. But you also have to do things with your money, right? I needed to still make sure that I could continue to keep a roof over my head and over my son's head, and that we would have food on the table and the activities that he was involved in, sports and all of those things were not disrupted or there was minimal disruption. Those are the same things that you experience when you're going through a divorce and you're negotiating. You're trying to figure out, how do I come out of this situation and feel like I'll be okay on the other side? So, very similar.
Hi, I'm Nierras, your host of the Your Wordless podcast. Now, if these real raw stories hit home, don't wait. Please follow, like, and subscribe my Spotify and YouTube. For bite-sized inspirational reels, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't wait. Your transformation starts today. Thank you, and bye for now.
There's so many points that you hit right in the head. And I know I've had several people on my show coming to talk about women having to be independent or being at least aware or financial savvy about the ins and outs of their money. Now, I come from an accounting background, so okay, that gives me a little bit of leverage advantage. But for those people that just, they go into a relationship and the relationship did not pan out the way that they hoped it to be, and I saw there's one question that you put on your profile, prenup. Regardless of whether you're earning, you have a certain amount of net worth, right? Or do just do you advise at least all couples, or at least the females, to bring this up before they actually go ahead with the union?
Absolutely. 1,000%. 1,000,000%. I'd scream it from the rooftops. I think it's something that's very important, at least from a conversation perspective. The great thing about going through a prenup process, regardless of whether you sign on the dotted line, is that it allows you to get a lot of information. Not only
About that
information
person
about,
who you're
yep,
marrying?
exactly, exactly. And why would you want to hide from that? So there's a level of vulnerability that is required when you are in an intimate relationship. There's a level that you hopefully go to that's very deep, and there's a deep level of intimacy. You're getting naked physically, generally. So why not get financially naked, as some like to call it? Because you need to understand not only where that person sits from the perspective of hard dollars. How much money do you have in the bank? What's your income? How much debt do you have? What's your credit score? But you also need to understand some of the softer things. What's your approach to how you handle money? What's your approach to risk? When you think about the future, investing, retirement, are they someone who's very open to putting their money in the market? What's their risk tolerance? If they're not open, why not? How will you manage money as a couple? So prenups do a couple of different things. Of course, they help to protect the assets that you have, but they also help you figure out how you can go into your marriage and manage money. And I think it's something that's underutilized by women who have lived life. So those who are 30, 35, 40, 45 and older, and you've worked for some time now, you've accumulated assets. You may have money in the bank. You may have money in your 401k or other retirement vehicles. You may own a home, a car. If you've been married before, maybe you have children from a previous relationship. All of those things, all of that effort and hard work is worth protecting. The things that you want your children to inherit is worth protecting. That doesn't mean that you want your marriage to end or you're going into it with the end in mind. However, you have to be realistic about the business side of being married. And so, again, even if you don't sign the document, have the conversation because at least you'll understand who you're marrying. And then maybe it'll help to minimize some of the fights that you might have in your marriage about money because you have a better understanding of who they are from the very beginning.
It is so devastating to hear or to know that women around the world are still struggling. Like, where should they go? Like, after they enter into a relationship, it's like it's giving themselves up, right? And if it's for the right reason, like, you have this idea of building a family, being a either you are a career oriented person or you just want to be with your kids, and I don't want to say serve your husband, but in a way that be there for the family. So because I grew up with a mom that is a housewife and my dad is the one who's working, so when my dad told the narrative, like he was saying, you gotta make sure, I cannot help but to think, but it's different than mom. Mom's not working and she's protected, she's provided for. However, I have to fend for myself. Now, I don't want to say have because have has such a negative connotation to it. I have to switch it to I get
I
to
get
fend for
to.
myself if something happens to me. So, and that mindset has actually served me very well, and it actually also gave me the courage to ask for the separation, the divorce. But then, of course, outside, you have a deal breaker. When do you leave a relationship? But at the same time, the grieving process can be very traumatizing and painful, right? And then there's this element of trust, that can you trust again, right?
Right.
And it's something that I am still, riding the ebbs and flows of it. I do try to go out there. I don't know about you, but it's a whole ball game in the dating world today, especially. I don't know what's it like in the States. Like, I was just in the States last September, and yeah,
It's
it's
it's wi-
it's a
it's
weird.
wild out there.
It's
It's wild.
wild. Yeah, I think that's the correct word to label it. It's wild.
Yeah, it is. I think it's really interesting though that you mentioned your father gave you that advice
Yeah.
as someone who was the primary or sole breadwinner.
Yes.
I think it's really interesting and it says a lot. Like if you don't listen to me, this message for your audience, like if you don't listen to me, then listen to Nick's dad because Nick's dad is in the right position as a married man who is the sole breadwinner and clearly understands the pressure that it not only places on the sole breadwinner, but also understands the risk that your mom was in. Now, I'm assuming they're still married, so it worked out, but it's
Yeah.
risky because it's
It
possible
is.
that the
Yeah.
relationship may not work out, and that puts you in a very different position. And women tend to suffer statistically more financially than men do when a divorce occurs. So him knowing that you could be at a disadvantage if you didn't do the things to be able to take care of yourself, I think it says a lot.
Thank you. Like, I do question myself. I do question him. Like, why? Because this being independent, I don't know this term of hyper independence. It's like, you got to put your guards up and say, and there's certain boxes that, or certain standards that people will have to meet for you to even consider now that you've gone through the things that you've gone through. And you just got to have to be discerning of when to cut and when to go ahead. Again, it's easier said than done because of course, who doesn't like people, you want to have somebody to say, I love you. And then, and somebody to talk to, come home to, but that is it worth to jeopardize all of that without really assessing the background of the person and really laying out all the cards before we jump into anything serious. Because likely at my age, mid 30s, I do not want to waste time. And starting from scratch, meaning getting to know a person, it is tiring, exhausting.
This is very true.
Like at times I'm like, I wanna, yeah, let it be. I just don't want to meet anybody. But then sometimes you have those days that you are, it's nice. It's nice to talk to people. But then there's some of the icky, I don't know what they call it now, ick things.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Nikki, for sharing your story and also about the importance of, you know, prenups and women having to stand on their own. So I would like to move on to the next question. What should high earning women do to protect their money?
Well, there are a couple of different things, but I think one of the first things, and this is regardless of how much money you own, but especially if you are a high earner, because it essentially means that there is more to protect.
There's more to lose.
And there is more to lose. Yes, yes.
I experienced that.
Yep. Yeah. That's the reality.
This is a reflective, this is a reflective moment for me, episode for me. So, okay. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine. It's relatable, so I understand. Okay. So, one of the first things that I think is really important for people to do is make sure that you understand everything you have. All right. And that's where like the baseline starting point is. So, understanding your net worth, understanding how much debt you have, credit score, pulling credit reports, all of those things. Those are basic kind of non negotiables. Because in order for you to consciously protect what you have to know what you have. So you can't skip the step. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Chef's kiss. What are you
Okay.
protecting if you don't even know
If you
what
don't
you're
even know what it
protecting?
is.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So once you've gone through the steps to get organized, you have an inventory essentially of everything you own and everything you owe. Then it's working with the right professionals. And that could be a financial advisor, it could be a certified financial planner, it could be a tax accountant, legal. I recommend that you build a bench, and you don't have to be wealthy to build, you don't have to be a millionaire to build a bench, but you have all of these individuals that get together at least once a year to have a strategic planning session with you about your money. So now we see what the picture is. Like I said, everything you own, everything you owe. And you have the right people at the table that you can trust and have expertise in different areas to figure out what your strategy needs to be for you to reach your goals. Those individuals will be able to help you figure out where you should be invested, if your portfolio needs to be reallocated because, again, you're too risky in one area versus another, or you're not taking enough risk. If you're on track for your retirement goals, when you plan to retire and how much money you need to retire. If you have the right estate planning documents in place, that's where the legal advisor comes into play. All of those things. Having a bench is not going to cost you a significant amount of money, but it will give you a significant amount of peace of mind. And then from that perspective, if you are, let's just say, single and you're deciding to go into a marriage, or even if you're deciding to cohabitate, you don't necessarily have to be engaged or be planning to marry. Maybe you just want to live with someone. They can also help you figure out what that should look like. Should you have a cohabitation agreement in place that says, these are the things that are mine, these are the things that are yours, this is how we're planning to manage things. So, very similar to a prenup, but you're not married. These are the steps that a high earner can take to protect the wealth that they have, the money that they've earned. Just a few. I mean, there's a long list, but those are kind of the top hitters.
Becoming a podcast host was a natural extension of my second act. Now, after spending 15 years in the corporate world, I've transitioned to helping individuals overcome challenges like navigating tough relationships, career burnout, and aligning their mission with their soul's core. By certifying as an RTT hypnotherapist and a lifestyle coach, I made it my mission to empower people to recreate the life they deserve and building a supportive community through my podcast. Now let me ask, are you facing challenges like struggling to reprogram your mind to attract wealth, weight issues that feel like a constant yo-yo, insomnia or restless nights from daily worries, or just a lack of confidence in public speaking? If the answer is yes, visit www.thenicknierrasholisticlifestyle.com and grab a free hypnosis audio of these common struggles. It's a sneak peek into how my coaching works. Are you feeling shy? Don't be, because I'm as real as it gets. Let's connect on Instagram and LinkedIn and start your transformation today.
Wow, that says a lot. So when you, as a high earner woman, go and propose to this partner of yours, say for example, like if you want to cohabitate, okay, we want to live, we want to move in together, but these are the things that we should. How should one start that conversation? Because it can be triggering. Like,
Yeah. Well,
okay, I
let's
thought we're here
hope.
in it for love. Why are we?
Yeah, love and money go together in my mind, okay? And even though I'm a divorce professional, I'm also a financial professional. So I love love and pro love. I love the idea of marriage, being like you said, having a partner or being in a committed relationship. I absolutely love it. I'm also very realistic. And so what that means is money conversations are uncomfortable, period. It doesn't matter if it's between someone you're in a relationship with, or sometimes even talking to your parents about money is uncomfortable. So we do have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, but you should approach it in a manner that feels safe for the both of you. And so you're not having all your money discussions in one night. You're not laying everything out and saying, this is what I want and it's my way or no way. It's about a compromise and it's about understanding that person. So that means that you should be having, I call them money date nights. You can call them whatever you'd like to, but you should be having very intentional conversations leading up to the point where you decide that you want to live together or that you want to get engaged and be married. You should already have enough information about this person before you move to that step. So if you're trying to figure out, well, how do I do that? You just start to ask questions. But one of the tricks to asking questions about uncomfortable, taboo topics is getting permission to ask a question. And so instead of just coming straight out and saying, so how much money do you make? Or what's your what exactly is your credit score? Can I see your credit report? You may not want to lead with that. You could, but it may not be super effective, right? So you could say, is it okay if Thursday night we go out to dinner, have a conversation, nothing too heavy, but I do want to get to know you better and talk about our goals and just make sure that we're aligned so that I can help you reach the goals that you have and you can help me reach the goals that I have. Since I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're planning to be together for a while. Starting off
I
that
love
way
that.
is very disarming instead of just shooting questions right out.
And if you're the other person hearing that from your partner, the male partner, will be like, she's smart. Yeah, she knows where she's going. She knows what she's getting into, and she knows what risk she's taking calculated risk right now.
Right. Right. And if the person pushes back and says, I'm not ready, or I don't want to talk about money, or I don't want to talk about my income, I'm not there yet, that's fine. You can take a no because sometimes no means not right now, but it can't be something that's delayed forever. The person
Until you're
doesn't
3 years in, and
exactly, exactly. Because then it's like, well, we probably have an issue that is
yeah,
not going to go away when you move in together or when you get married.
yeah. Wow, amazing. Whew. Okay. Wow, I wish I knew you before.
I hear that all the time, Nick.
Never mind, it's never too late. There's a reason for everything. I'm where I'm meant to be. This is why I love doing what I do. And it's so great to have you today, Nikki. So, a few more questions before we let you go. So, okay, how is a great marriage and a good divorce connected? How are these two connected?
Yeah, so this is very similar. It's a great segue because it's very similar to what I just mentioned. If you're starting off your relationship even before you get married, having conversations, and you continue that when you get married. So there's full communication and transparency about where you stand financially, even if only one person is working. Just because there's one person working and another not, that doesn't mean that the non-money, we call them non-moneyed spouse in divorce, but the person who's not working, that doesn't mean that they should not have access to information. So the same way that I mentioned that your high earning woman should be having conversations, for example, with their legal and financial bench, a married couple should be having these same regular conversations with their partner. And then you can bring in other people as well. So if those things are happening in a marriage, then those are signs of a good marriage because there's transparency, there's communication, you're working towards the same goals. If at some point you decide you no longer want to be together for whatever reason, it should actually make the divorce process smoother because the things that you have to go through in order to get divorced, financial disclosures, talking about lifestyle post divorce or thinking about lifestyle post divorce, negotiating what will be acceptable, spousal support, who's going to live in the house, all of those things. If you have a ton of information before you get divorced, that makes the divorce process much easier. The reason, not the only reason, but one of the reasons divorces cost so much and take so long is very often there's one person or maybe both who are very unorganized, don't have an idea of what they have, don't know where to get documents, are constantly asking, subpoenaing documents, all of these things in order to keep the process moving along. So there needs to be upfront disclosure. That information needs to be accurate. In order for it to be accurate, you have to pull from actual bank records, credit card statements, retirement statements, all of these things. If you haven't looked at this information in years, it's going to take you a lot longer to do it.
Ooh, ooh.
So if you're looking at it regularly, and unfortunately or fortunately, depending on the reason you're getting a divorce, you happen to get a divorce, that should make the process smoother. Doesn't mean you won't be an emotional basket case, but it will make the process a little smooth. Those two things totally different, right?
Yeah. Why
Yeah,
me,
yes.
right?
Yeah, that's a different podcast.
Yeah. That's a different episode,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
But I'm curious, Nikki, how was your journey after, what happened with your
Yeah,
relationship?
I had a lot of great support, a lot of great support. I strongly believe in therapy, just having a professional to support mental health. And I think the combination of that, along with trusted family and friends, and allowing myself to literally grieve and not suppressing my feelings were very helpful after my husband passed. That's what you're asking me about, right?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
yes, yes.
And also being transparent and honest with my son about different things that were happening or not happening or what would be different and what would be the same. And he had a birthday recently, and I made this post that said, I know I don't always get it right, but I think I figured out the key, the secret to being a good mom, and it's honesty. And I said that because the relationship that we have is really strong because there's a lot of trust there. And he knows that he can count on me and he can ask me about anything and he can come to me about anything. And while he may not always, even like as a child, he may not have always agreed with my decisions, but he just had to respect them. And so as long as there was an understanding about why, I always say this to my friends, and they used to make fun of me sometimes, but I treat my child like a child, but I also treat him like a human being. And so even from a very young age, it was, this is what I'm doing, but let me tell you why. Not because I need you to agree, but because I need you to understand. And I think that has helped him make better decisions now as an adult. So using those things, I think, helped me keep my sanity going through the process, but also all of those things as far as like strategies that I talked about, those were happening when I was married. So even though the death was unexpected, I didn't feel unprepared as it related to our like estate planning situation, as it related to financial circumstance. I knew where the bank accounts were, credit cards, all of I knew the information and I knew where to get it and what to do. So that provided a sense of comfort and relief to what was already a very overwhelming situation. That made the journey after more smoother.
And I'd like to go back to the part where you said with your son that you're doing something to make him understand. And it's so important because kids may resent us when they say when we say, okay, you're not supposed to do this, or we're moving somewhere where the cost of living is cheaper, but you're taking me away from my friends, the community that I grew up with. Why are you doing this? I wish that, somebody is still here, the father or the mother, we don't know,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times when kids um they go through that stage, they resent, but then the trust as a parent, I think it's important for us to keep on reiterating to them that, hey, I am telling you I'm doing this because of this, and this is why. This is for mainly about your future, because normally, as I don't have a kid, but I do want,
Mhm.
you'd want the best for them. And I'm also saying this because I have a half sister, she's only 12, and some of the things that I have gone through, she doesn't understand it. Super like strict on her, and sometimes
Mhm.
I feel like, I think she hates me. But at times I look at her and she draw like, oh, you'll always be my sister. I'm like, okay, that's comforting, because there's nothing more that I want for her to be able to stand on her own 2 feet. Yeah. So
Yeah,
Nikki.
and don't get me wrong. My
Yes.
son and I had some moments, okay?
Oh yeah.
That's normal. So I don't want anyone listening to think like, "Oh, it's perfect and it was all rainbows and butterflies." No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
He was a typical teenager sometimes, but we made it through that too.
Yeah, yeah. And it's especially as going through that, it's like, okay, you gotta learn how to balance, regulate your emotion, and then stand your ground.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
Okay, Nikki, what are you working on currently?
I am working on so we just revamped our signature program, which is called Bring Home the Bacon.
Mm-hmm.
And Bring Home the Bacon is intended for pre and post divorce women that want more accountability with their finances, figuring out exactly like what direction they need to go in. Maybe they're not ready for, I call it the super grown up financial programs, and they're ready to invest on their own and they know everything. And they're just like, give me the baby steps and let me find my footing and figure
Yeah.
things out. Right. So, Bring Home the Bacon is really intended for female breadwinners who literally go out to work every day, bring home the bacon or the money, and to fry it in the pan, serve it on the platter, and wash the dishes too. And they're pretty exhausted. And so they're just looking for additional support. So that's the main thing. Like I said, we just revamped that. And then Silent Preparation Series is our digital program. And we offer that for pre-divorce women. So that's someone who's preparing or just considering divorce and they're trying to figure out what to expect, how to save money, what are some of the initial things that they can do, and just get a better understanding of who can help them. That's the other thing that we have. So those are the two babies of the firm approach. And yeah, we just love supporting clients.
Awesome. Where can they get their hands on this program? On your website?
Yeah. On the website. So you can go to thefirmapproach.com. Firm has two I's, but it's firmapproach.com and they can find the information on the Let's Work Together page. And we also have plenty of things, resources and information that you can look at that doesn't cost you a dime, as well as the blog and stuff like that.
Nikki, I'd like to take you on a self-worth journey. Now, I have a question for you. And the question for you is, can exploring existential questions and embracing spirituality help in overcoming feelings of self-doubt and inadequacy, in your opinion?
Absolutely. I think that as human beings and the blessing that we have to have discernment, to be able to take in an insane amount of information and then compute that in our own brains and figure out what works for us at a certain point in time is amazing. And the reason I say a point in time is because what worked or didn't work for you in the past has nothing to do with the future. And so exploring other things outside of yourself, outside of things that you've done in the past, outside of what your family normally does and what seems to be acceptable, whatever that may look like for each person individually, I think is totally okay and should be welcomed because new perspectives, new ideas, divine downloads, as I like to call them, when you have the time to be quiet and sit with yourself and get grounded and connected to the world and to the earth, I can't see how that's a bad thing. So it's an absolute yes.
I love it. Do you have your own practices that you do for yourself every day? What do you do? So that it works for you during the shower. So you get your divine downloads,
I do.
inspiration
Yes, because
when
I'm
you're in the shower.
completely relaxed. I'm not thinking about a lot of things. I have some great like shower salts and bath salts and things. And I get the steam going and kind of opening up my senses and all of that. It's an amazing 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how late I'm running that day. Uh, it's an amazing time that I get to carve out and just whatever comes to me, comes to me.
Beautiful. Whew, Nikki. Okay, what is your heart's greatest wish?
So it's related to my kid. And it's just for him to be happy, for him to feel supported, and just to accomplish the things that he really, really wants to do in his life and not feel like he has to hold back or not dream big because he's scared of failure. So whatever makes the kid happy, whatever that looks like, I'm good with it.
There is always going to be a mother. I love all mothers. Well, Nikki, okay, if you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it?
If I'm creating it right now on the spot,
You
let
can,
me
you
think.
can, you can, you can borrow.
No, I don't want to borrow. I want to
Okay.
create. Let's see.
Yes. Let's do it.
You don't have to worry about things you don't have to worry about.
Ooh, meaning just focus on your, and I'm paraphrasing, just focus on your own lane and just focus on things you can control. You don't have to worry about things you don't have to worry about. I
Yep.
love that. Love that. Okay. So, Nikki, one more time, how can people reach out to you? Where
Yeah.
can they go?
The FIIRM Approach, again, website. So thefirmapproach.com. You can also find us on Instagram. I am finally getting going on the YouTube page I've had for 20,000 years. So you can find us on Instagram now. Sorry, YouTube in addition to Instagram. And I also joined Threads recently. So any of those platforms are the easiest way. And then we have a private podcast that's a part of our newsletter community. So the blogs and things that I write, I do talk about those on our private podcast, and you have to be a part of our free newsletter community in order to hear those.
Beautiful. Well, everyone, that's a wrap on today's inspiring episode with Nikki Tucker. Thank you for your wisdom and dedication to uplifting others always, Nikki. For our listeners, this has been Your Worthless. I'll read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. Remember, if you've ever felt worthless, you're not alone because your soul chose to be here to matter. And for that reason alone, you are worthy. A huge thank you to Nikki and to all of you for listening. I am Nierras, your host. Keep shining, keep growing, and remember, always, you are worthy and you are enough. See you in the next episode. Thank you so much, Nikki, for your time. Love this episode? Now, transformation doesn't end here. Head on to @holistic
holistic.lifestyle_with_Nick. That is on my Instagram. Or head on to my website, www.nicolette.holisticlifestyle.com for more info on my coaching framework, which is the Worthy, Authentic, and Abundant Framework, digital guides, and my upcoming events such as retreats and master classes and workshops. Now, I also do intuitive readings where we get to check on your soul path. And if you're